one of the world's leading expert on innovation and disruption. It doesn't get better than this. Today we'll be hearing and talking with a real, what I would consider a real American entrepreneur, one that has launched billion-dollar businesses, worked with anyone from the Pope, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, you name it. One that brought internet to US classrooms, one that helped grow pre-IPO LinkedIn with Reid Hoffman, the one that saw the entertainment and consumer tech industry disruption from the days of Napster to today, and the one that wants to inform you that it will happen to your industry and give you the tools to see it come and become a disruptor and not the disrupted one. So, Jay, the floor is yours. I've illustrated on this slide a few elements of your life. I don't know if you want to go from there and give us maybe a little introduction on, what brought you to write the book Disrupt You and think the way you think.
Sure. So first of all, that was a very nice introduction, but for everybody listening, I'm no different than you are. I didn't come from a family that knew people. I didn't have any connections. I didn't actually want to be an entrepreneur. I came out of college thinking good grades would get you with a good life, and I came out during a recession, and there were no jobs. And suddenly, faced with that choice, I had to create my own. And what I learned over the years and working with all these people that now become household names and billionaires is it's a different way of thinking, and that's what we're going to share a little bit about. And when I realized that this isn't taught in schools, I went to the largest engineering school in the U.S., University of Southern California, and said, let me teach a class called How to Build a High-Tech Startup. And I started teaching, and I had students that had a good idea and got them their funding. And the first year, they did $150 million. So it shows you that this can be taught and you can do it, and that's what we're going to try to talk about. And the biggest concept that you have to start with is everybody thinks about changing the world, but nobody thinks about changing themselves. And if we can start to think of ourselves differently, and in all of that baggage that was put on since you were a young child, that you're not good at this and you can't do that and you won't succeed, that actually gets into your mind. And the secret of life really is the following. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And once you realize how malleable you are and how you can change, you can start looking at business and industry the same way. So let me first talk about the difference between innovation and disruption. And my favorite example is innovation. If we think back to cavemen that first went in and in the Iron Age started making iron tools, and they made short little knives, and those knives over time became swords, and swords suddenly became bigger and bigger, and the Middle Ages and king and country were all about sword making. And then you have that scene in the first Indiana Jones where he's in the streets of Cairo, and the big Arab swordsman comes with the giant scimitar and he's swinging it. Indy reaches into his coat, takes out a Smith & Wesson, one bullet, boom. That's disruption. No one thinks about a sword after that, okay? Yeah. So what's happening today is we're seeing industries that did things the same way, and many times, like banking for hundreds of years, are literally being blown to bits overnight by self-made billionaires in their 20s. And this is mind-blowing to most people. So let's break down the self-made billionaire. They have the same 24 hours in a day that you and I do. They're just using it differently. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit here. So disruption is when new technology allows things that never were possible before. But what you'll quickly realize is most technology was thought of by somebody that had no business purpose in mind. It was invented to do something that people didn't think about. But once it's there, the entrepreneur can say, wait a second, what can I do with it that people didn't think about? So that smartphone that you have in your pocket, that smartphone is a powerful computer, more powerful than what got us to the moon. What can you do with it? So one of my favorite examples is you start thinking about problems in your life. And if you can think of a problem that lots of people have, millions of people, you become a millionaire or billionaire. So there were two young kids in Tel Aviv stuck in traffic. And I live in Los Angeles, which has a lot of traffic, or Moscow, where everybody has the same thing. And it occurred to them that the phone company knew that their phone was in their car and the other guy's phone was in his car. So if their phone said for them to go left and the other guy to go right, there'd be no more traffic. That was the genesis of Waze. And people go, well, wait a second, that takes tons of engineering, da-da-da. How many lines of code in his entire life did Steve Jobs ever write? The answer is 0. Steve wasn't an engineer. I put the first video on a computer. I launched the first online auction. I built e-commerce sites and technology used by billions of people every day. I'm not an engineer either. You can hire people with the skills and talents that you don't have. The only two things you need to succeed are insight and perseverance. It's that simple.
Thanks, Jay. So how did you, maybe, there's people, you see pictures here on the slides, Sheryl Crow, Bill Clinton, Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, how did you go to work with them?
Well, so I don't want to do the whole life story, but I'll give you a great example. So when video first got on a computer, it was exciting. We didn't know what to do with it. This was before you could stream on the internet. This were early days. Computers used to be screens that just had text and nothing moved. And we figured out how to chop up a piece of video like a checkerboard and move the pieces around. And we said, wow, this would be a really fun game. What if you could put the puzzle together before the video stops? Ooh, we need short videos, music videos. Oh my God, if we got music videos, this would be the greatest thing. So I knew this would help sell more computers and get more people onto Windows. So why don't I get Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, to send a letter of introduction to David Geffen, the richest man in the music industry, to help me get rock stars onto my video game? Great idea. Two problems. I don't know Bill Gates and I don't know David Geffen.
Okay.
But I knew I had a winning idea. So I started circulating the idea to people that I did know at Microsoft, and it percolated up to Bill Gates, and this total stranger who happened to be the richest man in the world sent back then, as before the days everybody had email, a physical letter of introduction. And next thing you know, I'm partnered with David Geffen, and we go out and get Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses and Peter Gabriel and Ozzy Osbourne and all the biggest acts, and it became a huge, huge game. So the point is, you just have to come up with an idea. When I sold my first company, I wanted to find a way to give back. And I saw the potential of what the internet could be. And I wanted to get the internet into every classroom in the US. And I started speaking about it and writing about it. And one day I get a phone call from a guy doing a really bad Arkansas accent, saying he was the president of the United States. And I embarrassed myself, making the most powerful man in the world prove to me that he actually was the president. Because it's not every day you get a phone call from the president. And to make a long story short, get invited to the White House, and they said, go do it. With one catch. There's not a penny in taxpayer money to do it. That doesn't stop a big idea. You'll find a way. I often say that the more entrepreneurs are better at making excuses than products. When everybody says, "Ooh, if I only had the funding, my company would take out." Well, go get the funding. So the only idea I had to get the funding was, why don't we do an online auction to sell stuff to raise the money? Well, Pierre wrote that auction. You know that today is eBay. We had a guy on the committee who was in between jobs, had just left Novell, looking what to do. He thought it was a great idea. His name's Eric Schmidt. He went on to be chairman of Google. So you suddenly realize big ideas attract big minds, like moths to a flame. And suddenly you wake up one day and tons of people that you've worked with are billionaires and have changed the world because you helped solve for others. So the first thing that you really want to do is figure out how you can solve problems for others, and that drives you success.
Thanks, Jay. I think that gives us a real good introduction